Welcome to another edition of Courtside with Rob and Washut. But before we head over to the arena, I want to give a big thank you to our sponsors of the show, Group Therapy Bike Tours and Slim Chickens. We'll start with Group Therapy. They are all in on the Nebraska basketball wave. Head over to grouptherapybiketours.com and book your ride today for all of your pregame, post-game, whenever game, birthday party, wedding, family reunion, corporate event. They have a 15-person trolley ride, a 6-person mini bike for whatever event you want to celebrate. And like I said, it is full force in Nebraska. If you've gone to a Nebraska game, I'm sure you've seen the trolleys riding around the Haymarket and downtown Lincoln. If you go over to grouptherapybiketours.com and use the promo code NebraskaBall, you will save 15% on your first ride. So make sure you head on over there and support our great sponsor. It's a ton of fun. I've been on it several times. Could not recommend it enough. Now over to our other sponsors, Slim Chickens. Bill Hooks and his wife Stacy are diehard Nebraska fans, and they couldn't wait to jump on the Nebraska basketball train. Locally owned Slim Chickens has 2 locations, 84th and Old Cheney and 16th and Pine Lake. Slim Chickens features a variety of options with fried and grilled chicken tenders, wings, salads, wraps, sandwiches, chicken and waffles, and southern sides. What makes Slim's different? Well, they have over 17 different dipping sauces for guests to choose their favorite. Slim Chickens is available for dine-in, drive-thru, or delivery via their online ordering. Check out Slim Chickens app and start earning rewards today. Slim Chickens is always a favorite for large gatherings and tailgate parties, especially Nebraska basketball tailgate parties, and let them do the cooking for you. Slim Chickens is moving forward, and they are expanding to the north side of Lincoln soon, so keep an eye out for that. Stop into your local Slim Chickens restaurant today for some southern hospitality and see their newly remodeled locations. Again, thanks to all our sponsors. Now let's head over to the arena and take you courtside with me, Rob and Washut.
Welcome back to another edition of Courtside with Rob and Washut, following Nebraska's 68-49 win over Northwestern on Alumni Weekend. And it was a strange game, to put it mildly. Offensively, that was probably some of the worst 27 minutes of basketball Nebraska has played this season. The just incessant turnovers. They just didn't look focused at all. Lazy passes, just like Purdue was to start the game. On Tuesday night, Northwestern was the aggressor. They were kind of bullying and setting the tone physically out of the gate, and Nebraska just kind of looked like they were a bit shell-shocked by it. And, that was kind of a concerning trend with the fact that they turned it over. Turned it over 18 times. It tied their season high. And that was after giving it away 14 times against Purdue. So it's 2 games in a row now where ball security has been a real problem. And it's kind of putting them at a severe disadvantage, especially when those 18 turnovers led to 27 points for the Wildcats. And against a team like Northwestern that is pretty limited with what they can do offensively, when you just gift them points like that, that makes life so much harder. And that's what Nebraska found itself in, where they were leading by 1 at halftime, which was kind of surprising in itself given how poorly Nebraska played. But the one kind of silver lining to that was that as poorly as Nebraska was taking care of the basketball and just functioning their offense, they didn't allow it to impact their defense. And the way that Nebraska was able to stay in that game was by playing high-level defense, where Nick Martinelli, the leading scorer in the Big Ten Conference at 22 points per game, he scored 11 points on 4 of 12 shooting and was really kind of a non-factor. 1 assist to 3 turnovers. They blocked 2 of his shots. And so that was about as good of a job as you're going to do on one of the most productive kind of do-it-all scorers in the conference and easily the heart and soul of this Wildcat team. And so that, I think, is what kind of steadied the water a little bit for Nebraska, is that, despite all the giveaways, all kind of the, head-scratching, make you pull your hair out type mistakes that they were making on one end, they didn't allow it to make them drop their head and start feeling sorry for themselves on defense. And because of that, with about 13 minutes left to go in the game, Nebraska, I think, they went to a lineup with Sam Hoiberg, Cale Jacobson, Price Sanford, Braden Frager, and Berke Bjugdejul, and rode that lineup for almost the next 10 minutes of gameplay. And over that stretch, outscored Northwestern 27-9. And that is, it's that group, obviously tip your cap to them, but that's kind of like what Nebraska's based a lot of its season around, where they don't, obviously there are variables to this, but by and large, they don't get flustered even when things aren't going well. And they kind of wait and wait, and that patience and that poise and that persistence, especially on defense, allowed them to kind of smell blood in the water a little bit when they went to that lineup. Price hit a couple big shots to get things going. Kale knocked down a couple big-time threes. Braden Frager didn't score. I think he had like 2 points in the second half, but he was plus 20. And Sam Hoiberg, once again, did it all. And maybe the unsung hero of that lineup is Berke, where, his final stat line doesn't do anything. He's kind of a story of his season. He had, 2 points, 1 of 3 shooting, 4 rebounds, 2 turnovers, 4 assists. But when you talk about how Nebraska took the game over down the stretch on defense, had Fred Hoiberg, Cale Jacobson, Sam Hoiberg, Price Sanford, every one of them to a T said that Berke was the one that started it on the defensive end. And his play, especially in protecting the rim, he had 3 blocks. All 3 of I guess 2 of those 3 blocks came in the second half. And just his rim protection and ability to control the paint and make everything difficult for Northwestern at the rim, that was what kind of got things going. And I think that's where the frustration started to mount for Northwestern, when they get those easy shots, weren't falling, and they really couldn't do the things offensively that they like to do. And then Nebraska was kind of turning that defensive pressure and uptick in intensity and turning it into offense and creating more transition opportunities. That's when the snowball started rolling down the hill and turned into an avalanche, where a 3-point Northwestern lead with just over 13 minutes to play was a 20-point Nebraska lead with about 3 minutes to go. So that stretch, to me, was as defining about what this Nebraska team is and what's made them so successful as anything we've seen in a while now. Just because, they looked, I guess the concerning thing is they look so bad, and they had yet another bad start at home, which has unfortunately been a theme for them all year. But with that, the other theme has been, when it's time to flip that switch, more often than not, they flip the switch. And this was as good of an example of that as anything, where they looked like a completely different team over those final 13 minutes, and they hung their hat on defense and used that energy and momentum that they gained on the defensive end to get their offense going. And Price Sanford, you talk about being able to keep your head above water over that first half with how poorly pretty much everyone else played. Price was the guy that kept Nebraska afloat throughout this thing. 29 points, 6 3-pointers. He was good from start to finish. He scored their first 6 points out of the gate with 2 threes, and was really kind of the main reason why Nebraska had that lead at the break. And again, you look at that run, Price was an integral part of it. He scored 18 points in the second half, and he was as good as he's looked all year. And that is what Nebraska needs, especially in a game where Rink masked, Jamarcus Lawrence, they couldn't have been much worse. Rink, he only played just under 26 minutes, 1 of 4 shooting, 6 turnovers, season high 6 turnovers. I don't know what it was. Northwestern was just finding ways to fluster him and just kind of had him out of sorts all day. And to his credit, he did have 9 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards. And compared to what Nebraska looked like on the glass against Purdue, they were plus 16 on the glass, including 13 offensive rebounds for 17 second chance points. That, you couldn't draw it up much better than that. So credit Rink for, again, finding ways to be productive even when the offense wasn't there. He also did have 4 assists. So, he did some Rink things, but the scoring just was not there. And Jamarcus, 1 of 3 from the field, 2 points, 3 turnovers to 2 assists. He's a guy that they've been really relying on to set that tempo offensively and help them flip that switch on that end of the floor. And he only played 18 minutes. I think he only played 7 minutes in the second half. And so a lot of that was because Nebraska was leaning on Cale Jacobson to run a lot of that primary point guard role along with Sam. So those 2 guys, 2 of Nebraska's most important players, really didn't see the floor a lot in the second half. Both played under 9 minutes over the final 20, and that's what made Price's performance so critical. The one thing Nebraska has, unlike last year, is when one or two guys are having a rough night, they have Price that can go off for 29. They have Sam that can go and get you 14. Even Cale Jacobson stepping up with 10 points on 4 of 7 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3-point range. Like that is kind of a hallmark of this group is, they have so many options that can step up when others are struggling and help pick up the slack. And today was all about Price. With his 6 3-pointers, he is now one more make away from tying Kerry Cohorn's single-season school record of 89 made 3-pointers. And he's still got like 5 or 6 games left in the regular season. So it's not a matter of if he's going to break the record, at least it shouldn't be. It's a matter of like how much and how far ahead he's going to end up setting himself in the all-time single-season list. And it's just incredible accomplishment, and it just kind of shows you the type of player Price has been for Nebraska all season long, why he should get all-conference consideration at the end of the year because of just how dynamic he is. Brad Underwood at Illinois called him the best shooter in the Big Ten. Games like this back that up, and they needed every bit of it from Price today to help not only just keep things within reach during that otherwise really brutal offensive stretch, but then also to slam the door when it mattered the most in crunch time. So this was a game Nebraska was expected to win. They were heavy favorites coming in. It didn't look great for much of the 40 minutes, but again, Nebraska did what it needed to do. It took over and it dominated in the most important stretch of the game and won by 19 points. And so they did what they needed to do in this one. And you look ahead over how kind of favorable these last few games over February, early March are to close the regular season. These are the types of games and wins that Nebraska needs to start stockpiling, because really the resume is what it is at this point. Like maybe winning at Iowa can give you another signature, and then who knows what's going to happen with UCLA. They just lost by 30 today. But really, like, you're not really worried about the like kind of signature piece to the resume. Nebraska's already got plenty of those right now. Now it's about stockpiling wins and avoiding bad losses. And losing to Northwestern at home would have been a bad loss, and Nebraska won by 19. Maryland is going to be the same way. Penn State's going to be the same way. So as long as they take care of business in those games, find a way to sweep or split Iowa, which I think is more than attainable, and then sweep or split the LA games with UCLA and USC, I think, this is just me talking, I think that comfortably puts Nebraska not only in the top 3 in the Big Ten and assures them a triple bye in the conference tournament, but probably at minimum assures them a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, potentially, depending on what happens with the rest of the teams in that conversation, potentially moving them up to a 2 if they win enough. So this was a good start to what is, when you looked at the beginning of the year, that this game was kind of the starting point of like that stretch where you thought Nebraska could really make some hay and make a pretty good statement on their postseason fate. And so it wasn't pretty for much of it, but Nebraska put an exclamation point on a win that it needed to get, and now off to Iowa in Iowa City on Tuesday night. Thanks again to our sponsors, Group Therapy Bike Tours, Slim Chickens, and we'll see you out in Iowa City for pregame thoughts and postgame analysis with Courtside with Rob and Washut.